Doug, from your side, what you've seen and what kind of people you've interacted with?
So I work with brokers. I only work with a few of them now, and I work with a few brokers, but mostly my buyers are end buyers. Um, but I do spend an awful lot of time. A lot of people will say too much time um, calling out not just stupid posts on LinkedIn, but people that have actually put together like fairly impressive decks, impressive websites. They're putting together companies and they're just not legit. And I've gotten, I don't know why, but I've gotten really good at being able to figure them out very quickly. There's just some easy things that they all seem to miss all the time. And so sometimes it takes me, 10 minutes, sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to figure out whether they're real or not. But sooner or later, I find out that 90% of them of these OEM brands are just not real.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with what certificates they're using. Like all these OEM brands aren't factories, and so the gloves have to be made somewhere. Unless you're okay with repacks, and there's nothing wrong with repacks. It's been done in nitrile for years. It's not been done as much as it's being done right now, but it was always done. There was always companies selling some of their line off to other people to repack under their own brand. So that's not new, it's just gone to new heights. But the other problem with repacks now is that they're using defective gloves and they're using used gloves. So repacks now have, that used to be like brand new gloves off a factory line are now like rejects. They can have, up to 40 or 50% of the gloves are defective in some way, rips, torn, missing fingers, no beads at the end, all sorts of different weird things. And it's up to these repackers to go through them and get those out. Well, they're going to let some slip through. So that's one. And number two, they're hand counting. I know somebody that just got a container and they went in and counted and there was not a box that had over 60 gloves in them. And that's huge fraud. And they might be able to pass that down the road and nobody's going to sit down and count them. And it's hard to tell the difference between 60 and 100 just by, spitballing with your eye, but that's happening. So, but getting back to these fake documents, it's what's the factory that's making these gloves? Where are the gloves coming from? Like everybody continues to forget that part of it. People are using the same documents for like 500 brands, and they're using the same 510Ks that don't match anything. There's an enormous amount of 510K fraud. It kills me because 510K isn't a requirement. And since I've done a bunch of different videos on it, I put out a lot of different information on it. Everyone knows it. And it seems like since I put out so much information, now even more than ever, everything has to be 510K. Like, I don't even understand that. Like, it should be the opposite. But now 510K is like the most sought after. And 90% of the ones I'm seeing in the market are fraudulent. They're just not using the right 510K information. So that's easy.
Yeah.
So if they're not
You're
using the
so
right,
right. I mean, sorry, Doug. I mean, they don't check the ASTM and they're checking the 510K, and I just don't get it. Why don't you understand that the 510K doesn't make a glove medical or chemo?
have nothing to do with anything, right?
Yes.
Because they don't know and they don't want to learn. It's a pre-marketing notification that goes to the FDA that says, hey, I'm going to start selling PPE Advantage nitrile gloves. Is it okay? And I get a K number.
Yeah.
And that's only for PPE Advantage gloves, but it doesn't mean my gloves are medical or industrial or food service or goat milking. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So anyway, so 510K shouldn't be a big deal, but it's become a big deal because people are uneducated. Same thing as 4 mil. But paperwork is important. The ASTM report should match the factory, should match the glove, should match the 510K, and everything should be pretty much a white line. We're in a little bit of a gray market situation because the only real true white lines are from big factories like Hartalega, like Inco, like Hungray, KC, and you can't get production from them. So sometimes there's a little bit of a jagged line. This guy did a joint venture with this guy. He's using his lines. Okay, if it says that on the box, you should be able to explain that chain, that line, right? So there's that. Then there's just the amounts that they say they can produce are not real. The websites, are like a week old. The people that you talk to seem very dodgy when you ask them for I've done a couple videos on this and I just have notes, right? can you get me a sample? Can you get it to me tomorrow? And Manesh, you and I go back and forth on that. Whenever you've asked for samples, they're there the next day. Whether I'm sending them from China, Malaysia, or my closet. No path performance. Like if you brought gloves in before, and I've said this before, you should be wearing that as a glove, as a badge of honor, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's no reason to be hiding BOLs. You should be like, yeah, man, I got 30 BOLs. Take a look.
Yeah.
I open those, we're completely transparent about that. I'll show you every single thing I brought in. And you don't have to do a deal with me first. You don't have to like sign an LC with me first, but we should be very transparent about their BOLs. And they give you references of people that they've delivered gloves or masks or gowns and had a good experience. And they shouldn't just be one, should be 5, 10, 15. Um, the documents belong to other factories. Did you do a background check on them? I know some people now that are actually doing full-on background checks on people. Somebody passed some information on to me the other day and said, look, this person was busted for cocaine, 12 years ago. I'm like, well, okay, well, that was 12 years ago, but okay. And I'm not sure that makes him a candidate for nitro fraud, but thanks for bringing that to my attention. You know, I'll be the first one to tell you I had a DUI when I was 20 years old. So anybody wants to hold that against me. So yeah, so those type of things in the paperwork and in just being really transparent with the information.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Safila?
I talk for stuff.
I look at similar to I look at the decks. I look at the certificates. Who do they belong to? The ones that I see the most are SGMP, healthy gloves, and medical gloves. They are being used in every single deck. I get about 10 to 15 pretty decks, and it's because the broker and the other thing I want to touch base on broker. I literally work with 6 brokers, or I'd say 6 to 7 brokers, and the rest I would just take a referral if they are coming from one of the referral brokers that I work with. But the most I come across is as GMP, medical gloss, and Shuntai too. That was the last one, right? We were talking
Yeah,
about.
Shintai gets a lot, and Xiaili out of China as well.
Correct. So you just have to ask, and OEM is not a bad thing. I do have a demand for non-medical buyers for janitorial companies, Staples Canada, like all of, and some of the local buyers, they buy non-medical from me, so it's fine. OEM is fine for me. However, you have to be able to explain, did they allow you to use their certificate? Is there an OEM agreement in place? And those are some of the things you can verify with the manufacturers directly. Don't use the emails that are on the OEM agreement. Do a quick Google search to see if that email is actually a made up email. Like as I said, I'm the first one to say I'm not a tech savvy person, but if I am, the scammers have gotten so smart. They know the ins and out, what looks pretty to the eyes. So the decks are getting even more pretty. Like, Doug, you said it takes you 10 minutes. For me, I'm like, wow, they're so genius. It's like it's getting prettier and prettier. It looks good to my eyes to see all of these glove brands coming up. So there's a lot of times that people that have been in the business longer than, of course, my company is going to be 1 year coming up. But what I'm noticing is people are looking at some of the documents like TUV report, and they'll say, well, look at the TUV report. It's not it's right there. So it verifies it. No, what it doesn't verify is the logo, the logo that you're using. They're saying they have nothing to do with this brand. Their certificates don't verify. This brand doesn't check out. And TUV reports is not saying it's an OEM. That's just them counting the gloves and checking and doing the testing on what they're asked to do. So you have to still do the background check. But it surprises me the type of due diligence really smart businessmen are doing, because I'll share a recent example where I was ready to put down my money for the MSCS brand, and it was brought to me by one of the supplier that it hadn't worked out 2 of the transactions, but he had returned me money for the the M Care transaction that didn't go well. So Again, when he brought me this brand and I had asked my team, they didn't respond to me. And I said, hey guys, I have a buyer that's willing to buy this because it's ready stock. And my buyer just sent me the 50% down and I'm ready to buy. And that's when they started to do the due diligence and they looked at the logo and they then sent me a purchase order from the company. They were actually buying gloves from us. So we reached out to the co-founder and we said, did you actually have an agreement to purchase, to actually have a logo put onto these gloves? And they said, no, these are counterfeit gloves. And so that was one of the signs. And but then I had other people kept offering me the brand and I kept saying, it didn't pass my due diligence, so I'm not buying this. I'm not putting it in front of my buyers. And then the recent one was, and then the particular seller kept reaching out to me and said, I have 1 million bucks allocation and you should buy it. And my buyer said, well, Shafila, they already have the top report. So why don't you want me to buy it? And I said, I literally connected them on an email and I said, I don't want to run this sale through my company because it did not pass my due diligence. But if you're so eager to buy, reach out to this person. And then, of course, thank God the buyer didn't buy it because again, I'm very black and white and I'm straight to the point. I said, it didn't pass our due diligence. But if you want to buy it, here's the contact person, gave the information, and then they ended up didn't buying it. But which I'm so thankful. That was my way of saying, stop,
Yeah.
don't buy the brand.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this is something we have seen too. And so if you look at the sourcing industry, right? I mean, we've had brokers and traders for the longest time. It's not new. But if you so for example, in the apparel industry has had trading companies for the longest time, and there are some large trading companies like Lee and Fung and William E. Connors
Yep, yep, yep.
which do a really good job, but they add value. So our partner and our co-founder Michael's company Headwind, for example, it's a trading company, 40 50 years old of trading company. They're adding value. They have people on the ground and they're doing something for you. We use their people to do our due diligence, and we send in people into the factories in Asia, doing that. And then there are brokers are basically, they don't have any skin in the game, especially in PPE. Most of the brokers, they're not putting their name on the line. They're not putting their money on the line. They're not doing any of that, uh, both on buyer side as well as supplier side. And they basically are trying to make these deals happen when they don't have control. And when you're a serious businessman, at least from my perspective, I asked my team, don't waste time. My sales team, I asked them, don't waste time with these brokers. It's waste of time. If they want a commission, we'll give them a finder's fee, as we give in the financial industry. We give them a finder's fee. Okay, fine. But you're not going to add value. Don't butt yourself in because you're spoiling the deal. You
right.
are not making things move for us. And then there is real factories. Real factories, it's very easy. Most of their information is public. If you go onto the websites and if you check their backgrounds, there should be all the information that is necessary for you to verify them. Most of them will have that information. Even companies like us, right? I mean, we are a platform, but you can find everything about all the founders. So I'll just take my example. I don't want to talk about everybody else, but my example, the first thing when we build the website is, why not give publicly all of our information? What's there to hide? Who is the founders? What is our backgrounds? Can our LinkedIn's be connected to it? What are the products that we are selling? Why can't we give maximum information about the products that we are selling? Why do we have to hide anything, right? So there is that kind of due diligence is not very difficult to do, but people need to do that, and people need to spend time on that. People don't give importance to that fact, and that's why they fail, and that's why they come out as scammers, even though they don't want to be scammers. I know a lot of people who are in this trade and they're not scammers, they're good people, but they get into this and then they come out as scammers.
I don't think it's about scammers. You hit nail on the head that it's not them doing any work. Uh, I don't want to give brokers a bad name. There are some really good brokers that bring me KYC on people. That when they show that they've done effort, that to me is okay. That's perfect. That means you want to earn. You've earned that. That saves me time. But what I have seen so far in our in PPE industry is that the brokers that are saying they're bringing the buyer are not the buyers. Then there are 6 people down, and that wastes a lot of my time. I
Yeah.
can't get on for the same deal, get on Zoom calls with 7 different buyers to be. And then everybody has a different perception of who they're next to. But guess what? Each one that have connected me to the next person, to the next person, to the next person wants 20 cents per box. So from where I started to have 8.50 per FOB, now at what, 10.50? And to me, that blows my mind. You cannot expect everybody has a place in the deal to make it happen, but everybody shouldn't expect the same amount of return, whether you're a facilitator, whether you're a broker.
Mm.
You have to identify yourself. Who are you in this deal? Or sometimes, not sometimes, I would say about, 80% of the time now, I'm not involved hands-on with every single deal. I divide and conquer. I trust the people that I have built my relationship with, I'm close with, I'm working with. So now I just say, this person is right next to the supplier, or this person's right next to the buyer. Let me just connect you two. And then you got to trust and let go. You cannot just have your head in like every single deal, because you will drive yourself crazy. You only have 24 hours, and I feel like I'm already working way too many hours.
Yeah.
So I think we have to trust our network. We have to, of course, the people that you trust, not just everybody. But you cannot be involved in every transaction. You have to know your role, and then let buyer, seller, and both. There's always one person that's holding hands for the seller side and the buyer side. Those are sort of what they
I
call
will
mandates.